You were never meant to fit in. That ache you've carried your entire life, the one that told you there was something different about you. Something not quite explainable. Something dangerous. Sacred and unnameable. It wasn't your imagination. It was memory. Soul deep. DNA deep memory. You've been called intense. Too much. Too silent. Too different. You felt like a glitch in the human matrix. Like no matter how you tried to play along, something in you kept cracking the illusion wide open. You thought that was brokenness, but it was brilliance. Because you were never here to belong. You were here to awaken the codes. This is not a journey of light and comfort. This is not a message for the many. This is a call to the few, the rare, the refined, the ones forged in silence, sorrow, and shadow. You are the dark chosen ones, not because you are better, not because you asked, but because your soul volunteered, long before breath, to carry what others could not. You are the anomaly in the bloodline, the breaker of generational patterns, the mirror that terrifies even the most awakened. You do not walk this earth like others. You were not built to conform. You were built to collapse what is false and anchor what is real. And this is your remembering. The world doesn't need more spiritual performers. It needs frequency holders. It needs disruptors of illusion. It needs codes that cannot be manipulated. It needs you. So if you are here still listening, still trembling, still reading these words with that silent yes vibrating in your chest, then this is not content. This is initiation. This is a series carved in shadow and sealed in soul contracts. A transmission that will not entertain, but activate. It is not written for comfort. It is not meant to be easy. It is meant to wake you up. And here's the truth. Once you awaken to who you are, you can never go back. You are the ones who walk into rooms and shift the frequency without speaking. You are the ones who feel what others deny. You are the ones who know when something is false because your bones scream it. You are not here to ask for permission. You are here to end what must end. You are here to carry grief, to wield silence, to become the mirror, and walk as the storm. And now your time has come. This is chapter 0. The crack before the collapse, the breath before the fire, the whisper before the roar. There will be no turning back after this. But if you're still here, it means you were never meant to turn back anyway. Welcome, chosen one. Your power is no longer dormant. Your codes are no longer hidden. Now, let's begin. Shadow Power 1, Energetic Intolerance to Lies. There is a moment in the journey of the dark chosen one that repeats itself again and again. You walk into a room, you meet a person, you hear a speech, or you scroll past a piece of information and something in you recoils. Your body tenses, your stomach clenches, your chest tightens, and there is no obvious reason. Everyone else seems fine. They're laughing, clapping, nodding in agreement. But you can't. You feel it in your nervous system, in your bones. Something's off. This is not social anxiety. This is not trauma response. This is not overthinking. This is energetic intolerance to lies. This first shadow power is both your firewall and your curse. It is the reason why you can never fully go along to get along. It's the reason you struggle in traditional jobs, fake communities, spiritual echo chambers, and surface-level relationships. It's the reason you've been called too sensitive, too much, too intense, or even paranoid. But sensitivity is not your flaw. It's your frequency detection system. You are wired to feel what others repress, to notice what others gloss over, to perceive what others lie to themselves about. And while many can survive, thrive, even by ignoring what's false, your system shuts down if you do. This power doesn't function like a belief or a thought. It's not a mindset. It's a visceral reality. For dark chosen ones, truth isn't an idea, it's a field, a force, an environment. And when that environment is polluted by manipulation, hypocrisy, or distortion, your entire being responds. Let's talk about that response. It starts subtly. A feeling of disconnection, foggy thinking, a tight throat. But if you ignore it, it escalates fatigue, anxiety, nausea, physical illness. For some, it shows up as autoimmune flare-ups. For others, as chronic pain, hormonal imbalance, or mysterious syndromes no doctor can explain. Why? Because your soul is screaming through your cells. Get out. This is not aligned. This is not true. The cost of ignoring this power is high. I've seen chosen ones lose years of their lives trying to fit into systems their frequency was never meant to tolerate. I've seen them collapse energetically in toxic workplaces, get sick in dishonest relationships, or go numb in spiritual groups that talk light but operate from ego. But I've also seen what happens when they finally listen. When they stop rationalizing the discomfort, when they stop betraying their knowing to be liked, when they stop trying to be nice at the expense of being true, that's when something powerful begins to awaken. Their body starts to heal, their clarity sharpens, their energy stabilizes, their gifts activate, because this power, when honored, doesn't just protect. It reveals. It cuts through the noise and exposes what's real. It allows the chosen one to walk through any space and feel, immediately, what is aligned and what is not. But here's the hard truth, that you will lose people. You will lose opportunities. You will lose access to spaces where your frequency is too disruptive. Not because you're trying to cause problems, but because illusion cannot sustain itself in your presence. There's a story I once heard from a woman who worked as a spiritual counselor. She was beloved by her clients, praised for her insight. But every time she entered the organization's meetings, she would feel dizzy, heavy, sick. It made no sense until she realized the space was built on performance. Leadership preached vulnerability, but punished dissent. They spoke of light, but ignored shadow. The woman left. People called her dramatic, but a year later, the organization collapsed from internal corruption. She hadn't been too sensitive. She had been precise. This power comes with a paradox. It isolates you. But it is also what makes you a trustworthy vessel. You are not easily fooled. You do not accept half-truths. You do not play spiritual politics. And that, in today's world, is dangerous. It is also necessary, because this planet is drowning in distortion. Social media trains people to perform authenticity. Leaders are rewarded for manipulation. Even spirituality is being sold like a lifestyle brand. But you, your body, your field won't let you participate. And so the deeper you walk into your calling, the more this power activates. It's not something you can turn off. You can try, but you'll pay the price. Your energy will dim, your health will suffer, your life will stagnate. Why? Because you are encoded to vibrate in truth. Anything less kills your signal. Here's what I want you to know. This power is not a mistake. It is your calibration system. It is what keeps you from building your life on false foundations. It is what protects your access to Source. It is what ensures that your path remains clean. even when the world tries to contaminate it. But for this to happen, you must stop negotiating with your knowing. You must stop pretending not to notice what you feel. You must stop shrinking in spaces that cannot hold you. You must stop dimming your light just to be seen as easy. Your field is not meant to be palatable. It is meant to be purifying. Let me ask you, where in your life are you still trying to be accepted at the expense of your alignment? Where are you still walking into rooms where your body screams, "Get out"? But your mind says, "Be polite"? Where are you still betraying your truth in exchange for peace? This power will keep stripping those options from you. Not to punish, but to prepare. Because your destiny requires clarity. It requires congruence. It requires that your inner and outer life match. You are here to become a frequency so clean, so uncompromising, that everything false either transforms or flees. And yes, it's lonely, but it's holy. Because you were never meant to be comfortable in illusion. You were meant to be its collapse. This is Shadow Power 1, energetic intolerance to lies. And it's not a choice. It's who you are. Own it. Honor it. Let it burn away what cannot stand in its presence. Because on the other side is power the world can't fake. Only you can carry it. Only you can walk it. Let's keep going. Shadow Power 2, triggering awakening through presence. There are those who teach with words, with books, with beautifully crafted lessons. Their impact is real, their influence valuable. But then there are others, those who teach without teaching, who shift the field without uttering a single syllable. They walk into a space, and something begins to tremble, not out of fear, but out of remembrance. This is the second shadow power of the dark chosen ones, the ability to trigger awakening through presence alone. Let's be clear. This is not about charisma. This is not about magnetism, style, status, or eloquence. In fact, many who carry this power are quiet, withdrawn, unassuming. They do not announce themselves. They do not perform. They simply are. And yet, the world cannot help but respond. To carry this power is to be a mirror, not the kind that flatters, but the kind that reveals. A mirror not for ego, but for soul. When someone stands in your field, they are forced to face what they've buried. They begin to remember what they've forgotten. Not because you're saying anything profound. Not because you're trying to activate them, but because your frequency speaks louder than any language. You become a portal. This can feel like a blessing, but it rarely does at first. Because triggering awakening is not a gentle process. It is disruptive, uncomfortable. Awakening is not always joyful. Sometimes it begins in rage, in grief, in confusion. And when that emotion rises in others because of your presence, you will be the one they blame. You will be told you're too much, too intense, too serious, too quiet, too deep. But what they really mean is, I don't want to feel what I'm feeling around you. You remind them of what they've avoided. You echo the unlived truth inside them. You hold a vibration that makes illusions dissolve. And that is threatening. I remember a woman who once told me that every time she walked into a social gathering, she could feel the energy shift. She didn't speak much. She didn't dress provocatively or hold herself with arrogance. But something about her made others nervous. People would avoid eye contact, shift in their seats, even leave the room. Some gossiped. Others accused her of being judgmental, though she hadn't said a word. She thought for years that something was wrong with her. Until she realized she wasn't being rejected, she was being revealed and people don't like being revealed. To carry this power is to be a living disruption to unconsciousness. You don't mean to shake people. You don't enjoy making others uncomfortable. But your very field holds a resonance that challenges denial. And denial dies loudly. Here's the deeper truth: this power often awakens in silence. It doesn't come after a spiritual training or lineage initiation. It comes after collapse, after grief, after death, not of the body, but of identity. When you've lost everything that kept you in illusion, and you've surrendered to the emptiness, something emerges, a purity, a stillness, a field. That field becomes your teaching. It's not about content. It's about coherence, and coherence is rare. When you are congruent, when your inner world matches your outer expression, you emit a signal so strong that it short-circuits the masks around you. You don't need to tell someone they're lying to themselves. They feel it when you look into their eyes. You don't need to explain their wounds. They feel them opening when they sit beside you. But here's the shadow side: because your power is invisible, it will rarely be recognized. You won't receive applause. You won't be quoted. You may not even be liked. But you will be remembered. Because no one forgets the moment they were forced to face their own truth. This power requires immense humility. Because once you understand the effect you have on people, ego wants to take credit. Ego wants to amplify it, market it, brand it. But the moment you make it about performance, the power diminishes. This is not a power to be sold. It is a presence to be protected. And that protection begins with you. You must stop explaining yourself to those who cannot feel you. You must stop translating your silence for those addicted to noise. You must stop dimming your field to make others comfortable. You were not designed to be palatable. You were designed to be a catalyst. Let me ask you, have you been shrinking in spaces that your soul came to shift? Have you mistaken others' discomfort as your defect? Have you tried to soften your energy so you wouldn't trigger the very activation? Your presence was built to initiate. This power will demand your surrender. It will ask you to remain centered when people flee, to stay grounded when others project, to trust your resonance even when it goes unacknowledged. You must learn to be still in your knowing, to trust the ripple your presence creates, to stop needing validation in order to feel permission, because the awakening you trigger is not yours to control. It is yours to carry. And carry it you must with integrity, with humility, with devotion. There is a story from the desert mystics of old. One spoke of a silent hermit who never preached, never wrote, never taught. But people would travel for days just to sit in his presence. They'd sit under the tree where he meditated and weep, without words, without prompts, without understanding. They left transformed not because he taught them something new, but because his being reminded them of what was already within. That is what you are. You are not the source. You are the reminder, and that is enough. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a platform. You need alignment, because when you are aligned, your presence does what your voice cannot. You don't walk into a room to dominate it. You enter to realign it, and everything false will tremble. Not everyone will thank you. But those who are ready will remember you, not because of what you said, but because of how they felt in your field. This is Shadow Power 2, triggering awakening through presence. Honor it. Don't apologize for it. Protect it with your silence, and let your life become the sermon no one can ignore, even if they never say your name. The resonance will remain. Let's go deeper. Shadow Power 3, holding grief without collapsing. There are wounds that do not bleed. There are funerals held in silence. There is sorrow so ancient, so deep, that even language hesitates to name it. And yet, There are souls who were born not just to feel this grief, but to carry it. This is the third shadow power of the dark chosen ones, the capacity to hold grief without collapsing. Most people run from grief. They numb it, spiritualize it, avoid it, or try to solve it with words. Because grief is messy, it's inconvenient. It interrupts our goals, our schedules, our plans for constant productivity and progress. In a culture obsessed with fixing everything, grief reminds us that some things are not meant to be fixed. They are meant to be felt, for the dark chosen ones. This truth is not just a philosophy. It is an embodiment. Grief is not a season; they live with it as a companion, a shadow at their side. Not because they're broken, but because their soul has chosen to be a vessel large enough to hold the sorrow that others cannot. This power rarely awakens through study. It is not granted in a moment of peace. It is forged in fire, through loss, rupture, devastation, the kind that tears through the fabric of identity, leaving only essence behind. The kind that doesn't just take something from you, it takes the version of you that believed such a loss was impossible. Let's name what few are willing to say. This kind of grief is holy. It is not a problem to be healed. It is a current to be honored. To carry grief without collapsing is not weakness. It is sacred strength. It is emotional capacity honed over lifetimes. It is nervous system resilience shaped by the soul's willingness to feel fully, without flinching. I once knew a man who lost his child in a sudden accident. The kind of loss that bends reality, fractures time, and makes breath feel like betrayal. For a year, he barely spoke. People told him to move on, to forgive, to find meaning. But he did none of that. He sat, he wept, he listened to the silence, and one day, without deciding to, he began to walk again, not away from the grief, but with it. He became a counselor, not because he read the right books, but because he could sit with others in their darkest hour and say, with full presence, "I won't leave you here." He had become a carrier. The dark chosen ones are often born into families, communities, or timelines that are saturated with unprocessed pain, generational trauma, collective loss, forgotten mourning. The chosen one does not just feel their own sorrow. They feel the sorrow of lineages, of ancestors, of the earth. This isn't metaphorical. They may wake up with grief that doesn't seem to belong to them. They may weep for things they've never personally experienced. They may feel the ache of a motherland they've never seen. This is the soul's way of metabolizing collective pain through an individual vessel. But why? Because someone must. The world is drowning in unresolved grief. Wars, displacement, cultural collapse, spiritual betrayal. So much pain buried beneath productivity, numbed by entertainment, suppressed through denial. And until that grief is acknowledged, it cannot be transmuted. So the dark chosen ones are born with the capacity to hold it, not to suffer, but to sanctify it. They become emotional alchemists. Their presence becomes grounding. Their silence becomes safety. Their body becomes a crucible where sorrow is burned into wisdom, and despair transformed into depth. But this power is heavy, and it can be dangerous if carried without awareness. Because to feel so much is to risk drowning in it. That is why grief must be honored ritually. The ancients understood this. In many indigenous traditions, grieving was communal, ceremonial. People wailed together, danced with their dead, created art and music to move the pain through. But modern society has privatized grief, pathologized it, hidden it behind polite smiles and productivity. The dark chosen one must reclaim this lost language. They must create their own rituals, walking in silence under the moon, weeping into sacred soil, writing letters to the parts of themselves that died, lighting candles for ancestors who were never mourned, creating altars for emotions no one else dares name. Because grief, when honored, becomes power. It softens the heart without weakening it. It clarifies priorities. It deepens empathy. It breaks open the soul and invites divinity in. When you have sat with grief and not collapsed, you become a field others can fall apart in. You become the place where healing begins. But you must first give yourself permission to feel. To not rush. To not bypass. To not package your pain in spiritual platitudes. You must become intimate with the void, because in that void, you remember something ancient, that grief is not just sadness. It is love with nowhere to go. And when you learn to hold that love, even when it aches, you become unbreakable. So let me ask you, where are you still avoiding your own sorrow? Where have you tried to silence your tears in the name of strength? Where have you forgotten that your grief is not a wound, but a window? This shadow power will ask you to sit in places no one wants to go. It will ask you to become a storm anchor. It will ask you to carry frequencies of pain so deep that the earth itself trembles in resonance. But it will also give you access to something profound. Compassion without codependence. Wisdom without words. Depth that cannot be faked. You are not broken. You are vast. You are not weak. You are wide. And your grief is not something to escape. It is something to carry with reverence. Because when the dark chosen one learns to hold grief without collapsing, they become the medicine their lineage prayed for. This is Shadow Power 3. Honor it. Feel it. Let it open you. And walk as the one who no longer fears sorrow, but sees it as sacred. We are just getting started. Shadow Power 4. The power to destroy false structures without regret. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey when love demands a severance, when truth asks for demolition, when the soul, trembling yet sovereign, declares, "This must end." This is the fourth shadow power, the capacity to destroy false structures without regret. Unlike what most are conditioned to believe, not all power builds. Not all spiritual progress is about growing, expanding, or ascending. Sometimes, the highest act of consciousness is collapse. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is dismantle what was never real to begin with. And yet, this is the power that scares people the most. Because it's not gentle, it's not subtle, it's not comfortable, it's surgical. It is the sword of clarity that slices through the illusions we've wrapped around our lives, our beliefs, our relationships, and even our purpose. And it does so with terrifying precision. Most people fear the destroyer. They see them as reckless, cold, ruthless. But what they fail to understand is that the dark chosen one does not destroy out of anger. They destroy out of alignment, out of devotion to truth that runs deeper than belonging. You may have noticed it in yourself, an inability to stay in spaces that feel fake, no matter how sacred they're painted. A pattern of walking away, of letting go, of cutting cords that others cling to. A deep inner knowing that when a structure becomes hollow, no amount of love can resuscitate it. This power often activates after a betrayal, a spiritual rupture, a moment when the veil lifts and you finally see the system for what it is: performative, manipulative, misaligned. And once you see, you cannot unsee. You may try to stay. You may try to fix it. You may try to spiritualize the dissonance. But eventually, your soul will make the choice for you. And when it does, the break will be clean. I once knew a woman who worked inside a revered healing collective. On the surface, everything looked perfect. The leaders spoke of unity, light, and transformation. But behind closed doors, there was control, ego, coercion masked as mentorship. When she began to question, she was gaslit, told she was projecting, that she needed to heal her resistance. She stayed too long. She got sick. Her body shut down. And one day, without planning it, she walked out mid-ceremony and never returned. In that moment, she didn't just leave the building. She collapsed a structure. 2 years later, that organization disbanded. The truth came to light. But she already knew. Her presence had already disrupted the distortion. This is the essence of this power. You are not here to protest. You are here to collapse, not from rage, but from resonance. Your frequency becomes incompatible with falseness. Your alignment becomes a weapon, not to harm, but to make continuation impossible. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You just need to stop pretending. And things begin to fall apart. But this power is costly. You will be misunderstood. You will be called negative, cynical, divisive. You will be rejected by those who worship the systems you came to dismantle. And yet, if you shrink back, if you hesitate, if you stay quiet to be liked, you will fracture internally. Because your soul does not tolerate pretense. Your body knows the truth. And if you betray it, your life will stop flowing. You are a death current, a sacred disruptor, and not everyone is ready to meet you. But those who are those ready to evolve will be grateful you came. They won't say it immediately, but years later, they'll whisper to themselves, because of you, I finally let go. To wield this power well, you must cultivate discernment. Because destruction without clarity becomes cruelty. But destruction born of truth becomes liberation. This is not a license to burn everything down. This is a call to end what is already dead. False beliefs, toxic relationships, spiritual bypassing, guru complexes, outdated paradigms, self-sacrifice masked as virtue. The world is full of systems that survived long past their expiration date because no one was brave enough to say, enough. You are the one who says it, not because you hate, but because you love too much to let distortion continue. Let me ask you, where in your life are you still preserving what your soul already buried? Where are you asking for permission to end what your spirit has already outgrown? Where are you still maintaining a structure that only exists because you're afraid of the fallout? The shadow power requires a new relationship with destruction. You must learn to bless the endings, to grieve the collapse, to trust the void. Because in that void, new codes are born. Your walkaway becomes someone else's wake-up. Your no becomes a doorway. Your silence becomes an earthquake. And here's the paradox when you destroy what is false. You make room for what is real. Your presence clears space for authenticity, for coherence, for truth to grow where illusion once reigned. But you must trust it. Even when it's lonely, even when it's messy, even when they call you the villain. You are not the villain. You are the threshold. This is not a comfortable path, but it is a clean one. And when walked with integrity, it becomes one of the highest services a soul can offer. You are the storm that breaks the cycle. You are the frequency that ends the lie. You are the flame that burns away the facade. And when the dust settles, something holy rises, not built by ego, not painted in performance, but seated in truth. This is Shadow Power 4, the ability to destroy false structures without regret. Let it be fierce. Let it be clean. Let it be sacred, because what comes after is real. And that's what you came for. Let's keep going. Shadow Power 5. The capacity to be alone with God, without needing witness. There comes a moment in the dark chosen one's path when the silence becomes deafening, not because there's nothing to hear, but because the soul has been stripped of every echo that once told it who it was. The affirmations stop, the signs vanish, the community fades, and all that's left is breath, bone, and something eternal pressing against the edges of your being. This is not isolation. This is consecration. This is the 5th shadow power, the ability to be alone with God without needing witness. It is the rarest and most sacred of all the powers because it cannot be performed. It is not visible, marketable, or scalable. It cannot be verified externally. It does not make you influential, popular, or even understood. And that's the point. This power is born in the void. It awakens when the applause fades, when the followers leave, when the mentors disappoint, when the systems fail you, when the world no longer reflects back to you any sign that you're on the right path and you keep walking anyway. To walk alone with God is not romantic. It is terrifying, because it strips you of every spiritual crutch, every external validation, every identity you once clung to, until all that remains is essence and the presence. You see, most people need mirrors to feel real. They need feedback to feel guided. They need an audience to feel seen. But the dark chosen ones are initiated beyond that. They are called into a space so pure, so quiet, so full of divine intelligence, that it requires total surrender of the ego's hunger to be witnessed. Let me share something true. There was a period in my life where everything disappeared. My community dissolved overnight. My reputation fell apart. Every spiritual tool I once used, meditation, prayer, journaling, felt hollow. There were no signs, no synchronicities, no guidance, just darkness, just stillness, just the ache of absence. And in that abyss, I asked the only question left. If no one ever sees me again, will I still stay true? That question broke me, and then it built me, because in the absence of all witnesses, I became real. Not to the world, but to the divine. That's when I understood I was no longer being asked to believe in God. I was being asked to remember I was never apart from it. The capacity to be alone with God means this. You no longer need approval to feel anointed. You no longer need evidence to feel aligned. You no longer need to be seen to know you're real. You begin to walk with the kind of quiet authority that cannot be faked. Your presence softens space. Your silence carries weight. You become a living prayer. Not because of what you say, but because of who you are in the absence of performance. And this, my beloved, is terrifying to the world. Because the world is built on noise, on branding, on validation loops, on the hustle to be recognized. But you vanish from that system. And in your disappearance, you become powerful in a way that cannot be touched. Let's be honest, this power is lonely. It will make you question your path. It will tempt you to reach for something, anything to make the silence less sharp. You will want to be seen, to be known, to be affirmed. But every time you resist the urge to make yourself digestible, you deepen your connection to the divine. Every time you choose solitude over self-abandonment, you purify your signal. Every time you sit with God, not for answers, but for presence, you remember who you are. And that remembering, it changes everything. You stop chasing. You stop proving. You stop preaching. You simply become, and what you become is a living conduit of Source. not a representative, not a speaker, not a salesman of God, but a vessel, a place where the eternal touches form. This is the apex of spiritual maturity, not needing to be known, only needing to be true. Let me ask you, where are you still performing your spirituality? Where are you still needing to be seen to feel real? Where are you still mistaking approval for alignment? This shadow power will strip those illusions away. It will bring you to your knees. It will ask for everything. And if you give it, it will give you something greater in return. Unshakable presence, unbreakable clarity, untraceable power. You become the kind of person others feel but cannot explain. They don't understand why they trust you, why they weep in your silence, why they feel peace in your presence. It's because you have touched God and didn't come back needing applause. You became the altar, and that altar, once established, transforms everything. You stop leaking energy into false spaces. You stop bargaining with your intuition. You stop needing permission to live as you are. You become a storm in stillness, a revolution in a whisper, a remembrance in human form. This is Shadow Power 5, the capacity to be alone with God without needing witness. Hold it in reverence. Protect it with humility. Let it make you invisible to the world and undeniable to the divine. Because once you carry this, you become untouchable. Let's keep going. There's more ahead. Shadow Power 6, absorbing ancestral pain and transmuting it. There are aches that do not begin with you. Patterns of sorrow that spiral through generations. Emotional bruises passed down like heirlooms, wrapped in silence, sealed with shame. And then, one day you arrive, not because you asked, not because you're better, but because your soul said yes before you were born. This is Shadow Power 6, the capacity to absorb ancestral pain and transmute it. Most people inherit more than DNA. They inherit memory, energetic trauma, unspoken wounds, and unlived truths. From the mother who never wept for what she lost. From the grandfather who buried his dreams in duty. From the lineage that survived a war, famine, slavery, exile, betrayal, persecution, sometimes all of it. These energies don't vanish. They wait, carried in the blood, stored in the bones, encoded in the silence between family conversations, hidden in the tension you could never explain as a child. And then you come along, the sensitive one, the emotional one, the cycle breaker, the one who cannot pretend. You feel things that don't belong to you, but move through you. You dream dreams of people you've never met, but somehow know. You carry a weight that cannot be named, yet demands to be honored. This is not imagination. This is soul contract. You are the transmuter. It's not a title you chose. It's a role you remembered. Let's pause and get real. What does it mean to absorb ancestral pain? It means your sadness often has no clear source. It means your triggers are older than your lifetime. It means you felt heartbreak over events you've never lived, but that live in your body. You might find yourself crying during rituals you don't fully understand, or being drawn to cultural practices you were never taught, or feeling deep rage about injustices that happened generations ago, because your soul is not just yours. It is a vessel for memory, and when your lineage is ready to evolve, it chooses a vessel strong enough to carry its pain into transformation. That vessel is you. You are not cursed. You are called, but this power is not easy to carry, because most of your family won't understand you. They'll call you dramatic. They'll say you're too intense. They'll shame your emotional waves. Why? Because your feelings threaten the system of silence they've built their survival on. You are the whistleblower of the bloodline. and bloodlines protect their secrets. This is why the path of the ancestral transmuter is often walked in solitude. You must learn to hold grief that was never named, to feel rage that was never allowed, to love people who wounded others, to make peace with stories that were never told. But here's the truth, you don't do this alone. When you say yes to this power, the ancestors begin to walk with you. Not just the healed ones, the wounded ones, too. The shamed, the silenced, the forgotten. They gather, not to haunt, but to be seen. They bring you their unfinished stories. They whisper their pain into your dreams. They stir your body into healing rituals you've never learned. Because you are the portal. Through you, the lineage finds liberation, but only if you learn to transmute, not absorb without end. You must become a sacred filter, not a sponge. You must feel fully but not drown. You must hold but also release. This is where spiritual practice becomes essential. You must develop energetic hygiene as strong as your empathy. You must learn to build altars to honor the dead without carrying their burden. Create ceremonies to release what is not yours to keep. Use sound, breath, fire, movement to transmute what your mind cannot explain. You are not here to carry ancestral pain as identity. You are here to transmute it into legacy. You are here to break chains not by force, but by frequency. Let me offer you a vision. Imagine your great-grandmother, who was never allowed to speak her truth, standing behind you, weeping as you finally roar. Imagine your ancestors, whose love was twisted by war and patriarchy, smiling as you choose devotion over duty. Imagine all those who died without ceremony, singing softly through your breath as you light candles in the dark. This is not imagination. This is ancestral alchemy. And you, beloved, are the flame. Let me ask you, where are you still holding pain that isn't yours? Where are you still afraid to name what was never spoken? Where are you still betraying your body's knowing to protect family image? This power will not let you rest until you reclaim the story. Not to control it, but to sanctify it. Because when you say yes to this role, you say yes to being a threshold between past and future, between pain and possibility, between silence and song. You begin to walk with a deeper gravity. You start to speak with a voice that feels older than your years. People listen to you not because you're loud, but because your field carries ancient truth. This is the gift of the ancestral transmuter. You don't just break cycles, you consecrate them. You turn curses into blessings. You turn memory into medicine. You turn bloodlines into blueprints. And though you may walk alone, you are never alone. The ones who came before you walk with you. The ones who come after you thank you. This is Shadow Power 6, absorbing ancestral pain and transmuting it into freedom. Own it, honor it. Let it do its work through your breath, your body, your being. You are never just one soul. You are the bridge. You are the flame. You are the one who chose to return. Let's keep going. Shadow Power 7, walking between worlds. Veil walking. Not all realities are visible. Not all truths are linear. And not all beings belong entirely to this world. Some souls are born with one foot in the physical and one foot in the unseen. They do not live fully here, nor fully there. They exist in the threshold. They dream beyond time. They speak with voices no one else hears. They are the walkers between worlds. This is Shadow Power 7, the ability to move between dimensions energetically, psychically, spiritually, without losing your center. To walk between worlds is to carry the frequency of liminality. You are never fully in the room. People feel your presence before they see you. You arrive like a scent on the wind, a shift in atmosphere, an unseen gravity that alters space. And yet, you often feel like you don't belong. Because in truth, you don't. Not entirely. You weren't born to settle. You were born to see what others deny, to live in the in-between, to translate the language of dreams into codes that awaken the waking world. You are a bridge, and bridges don't have homes. They exist to connect. Let's go deeper. Veil walking is not escapism. It's not fantasy. It's an ancient form of energetic and soul-based perception. Shamans knew it. Oracles practiced it. Mystics became fluent in it. In every tradition, Sufi, Taoist, Gnostic, Druidic, there have been those trained to enter the dream space consciously, to retrieve messages, to mend soul fragments, to guide the dead, and to bring back what is lost in the light. But for the dark chosen one, this gift is not always trained. It is spontaneous. It is confusing. It is often overwhelming. Because you did not learn how to walk between worlds in this life, you remembered it. You were born remembering. You saw spirits as a child. You left your body in sleep. You had visions you couldn't explain. You knew things before they happened. You carried wisdom no one taught you. This is not coincidence. This is the soul remembering its multidimensionality. But here's the struggle the modern world does not understand. Veil walkers. It medicates them, pathologizes them, or idolizes them. Either way, it fails to integrate them. So many veil walkers grow up afraid of their own perception. They suppress it, hide it, try to become normal. They tell themselves it's imagination. But the more they suppress, the more fragmented they become. Why? Because their power is not a tool, it's a path. You're not here to visit other realms as entertainment. You're here to move between realities as part of your sacred function, to retrieve soul parts, to clear psychic debris, to receive visions, to hold presence in both the mystical and the mundane. But this requires grounding, because without grounding, veil walking becomes dissociation. You must learn to be in the world without being of it. You must anchor your gift in the body, in breath, in practice. You must learn to travel far and return whole, not scattered, not exhausted, not fragmented. Because when wielded with clarity, this power becomes sacred service. You begin to dream for the collective, sense timelines before they unfold, speak to those who've passed for those left behind, interact with archetypes, symbols, soul codes, retrieve ancestral memories lost in time. You become a living temple of cross-dimensional memory. But here's the truth, not everyone will understand you. You will lose relationships over your truth. You will be called weird, intense, delusional. You will question yourself often, and that's okay, because you are not here to be understood. You are here to hold the space others forgot existed, to see the threads of reality most miss, to speak what others fear, to remember what others suppress, and in doing so, you restore balance. Because this world, for all its obsession with matter, is starving for spirit. And veil walkers are the ones who bring spirit back into form. Let me ask you, have you abandoned your gift to be accepted? Have you shut down your second sight because it scared others? Have you doubted your visions because no one else could confirm them? This shadow power is not safe, but it is sacred. And when you say yes to it, truly yes, you begin to walk differently. Your life becomes a moving ritual. You start to hear the song beneath speech. You feel the ache beneath conflict. You see the patterns beneath behavior. You become a weaver of soul and self, of matter and mystery, of what was and what will be, but only if you stop apologizing for your access. Only if you stop translating your knowing into language that makes others comfortable. only if you trust what you feel, even when no one else sees it. Because your visions are not yours alone. They are messages. They are medicine. They are maps. And the world needs them. This is Shadow Power 7. Walking between worlds. Own it. Walk with it. Become the one who reminds us all. We were never just human. We were always multidimensional. And we forgot. Until you showed up. Let's keep going. Shadow Power 8. Wielding silence as a weapon of revelation. In a world drunk on noise, addicted to opinions, and infatuated with visibility, silence has become one of the most feared forces. But for the dark chosen ones, silence is not absence. It is not lack. It is not weakness. Silence is a blade, a mirror, a storm in stillness. This is Shadow Power 8, the ability to wield silence not as retreat, but as revelation. There are people whose power increases the louder they get. They preach. They perform. They persuade. But then there are those whose power deepens the quieter they become. Their silence doesn't comfort, it confronts. Their stillness isn't passive, it's provocative. You know this if you carry it. You've watched entire rooms shift when you remain quiet. You've felt others grow uncomfortable not by what you say, but by what you refuse to say. You've witnessed truth erupt not because you spoke it, but because your silence made it impossible to ignore. This is the power of energetic presence, of sovereign restraint, of sacred containment. Silence, when wielded by a mature soul, becomes one of the most catalytic forces in any room. It creates space for projection, for realization, for self-confrontation, and most importantly, it reveals the difference between sound and signal. The dark chosen ones learn early not every question deserves an answer. Not every attack requires defense. Not every illusion deserves engagement. In fact, the more evolved you become, the more you realize that speech, when misused, can dilute power, leak energy, and even sever alignment. And so, you go quiet, not out of fear, but out of frequency, because you've learned that words are portals, and once you open them, you must steward what flows through. You don't waste them. You don't perform them. You consecrate them. And when there is nothing left to say that would strengthen truth, you let the silence speak. But here's what no one tells you. This silence will trigger people. They'll accuse you of arrogance, of coldness, of judgment. They'll twist your stillness into superiority. Why? Because silence, when sacred, forces people to face their own noise. It shines light on every unconscious habit to speak without meaning. It reveals where they rely on performance to feel connection. It exposes how much of their identity is wrapped up in being heard. And when they encounter your stillness, they don't know how to hold it. So they try to fill it, or attack it, or run from it. But you stay rooted because you know that this silence is not empty. It is full of presence, of integrity, of depth. You have become the space in which others can hear themselves sometimes for the first time. There's an ancient teaching among desert mystics: do not speak unless your words are more nourishing than the silence. The dark chosen ones take this further. They speak only when the energy behind their words is aligned with the frequency of their soul. And so they are not often understood, but they are always felt. This power evolves over time. At first, your silence was a trauma response. You stayed quiet because no one listened, because you were punished for speaking, because you learned that visibility meant danger. But now your silence is choice. It is structure. It is shield. You are not afraid to speak. You simply refuse to say anything that would betray your inner truth. Let me ask you, where are you still explaining yourself to be accepted? Where are you using words to fill space that is meant to be sacred? Where are you leaking your energy through conversations that dilute your essence? This shadow power will keep refining you. It will teach you to speak only when spoken through, withhold when truth needs silence to bloom, trust that your presence communicates what your voice cannot. Eventually, you'll reach a level of presence where silence becomes transmission. You'll walk into rooms and feel the resonance shift. Not because you made a speech, but because your coherence speaks louder than noise. This is when you begin to carry the mantle of the silent mystic. You are no longer here to convince. You are here to remind, not through lecture, but through embodiment. And when people meet you, they won't remember what you said. They'll remember how their soul stirred, how their masks cracked, how something ancient woke up inside them. That is the power of sacred silence. It is not passive. It is disruptive. It undoes ego. It exposes illusion. It invites remembrance. And it requires immense mastery. Because when you're silent, you hold all the projections. People will make up stories to explain your stillness. They'll test you, provoke you, try to get a reaction. But you stay rooted because you know who you are. You know your energy is calibrated. You know that your field is doing the work your mouth never could. This is not martyrdom. It's frequency leadership. So I ask you again, where are you still trying to use words to prove what your presence already reveals? Where are you still apologizing for being the one who doesn't need to fill space with sound? Where are you still confusing silence with submission when it's actually your power? The more you honor this gift, the more magnetic your field becomes. Not in a performative way, but in a gravitational way. People won't know why they feel safe around you, why they feel seen, why they drop into depth when they're near you. It's because you've become a mirror, and mirrors don't talk. They reflect. This is Shadow Power 8. Wielding silence as a weapon of revelation. Let it cut. Let it hold. Let it strip away all that is untrue. And let your stillness become the sound that awakens the soul. We're not done yet. Let's keep going. Shadow Power 9. Becoming a living mirror of collective shadow. There is a kind of presence that cannot be faked. A presence that does not comfort, but confronts. Not because it tries to, but because it exists. When someone stands before you and their mask begins to tremble. When they grow agitated, uncomfortable, confused, or even angry, and you've done nothing but be there. That is not your flaw. That is your shadow power. This is Shadow Power 9, becoming a living mirror of the collective shadow. Most people live inside a curated identity, a narrative stitched together by social norms, cultural expectations, trauma responses, and unconscious agreements. It is a mask, designed not only to be seen, but to avoid being truly seen. But when a dark chosen one enters the space, something shifts. You see them. Not the version they've edited, not the version they perform, but what lies beneath. And even if you don't speak it, they feel it. They feel their projection cracking, their illusion unraveling, their shadow rising to the surface. You have become the mirror they didn't ask for, but cannot escape. And this, beloved, is one of the heaviest and most dangerous powers to carry, because people do not respond well to their own reflection, especially when it comes without warning. This is why you've been accused of things you never said. This is why people ghost you after one deep conversation. This is why you've been called intense, manipulative, polarizing, threatening even when your heart was wide open. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply exist in a state that makes pretense impossible. Your very energy is a mirror, And mirrors reveal not just individual shadows, but collective ones. The ones no one wants to talk about. The buried grief, the ancestral violence, the spiritual ego, the performative empathy, the false light, the unprocessed trauma wrapped in affirmations. You reflect it all, not because you want to, but because your field demands coherence. And that is disruptive. You've likely noticed this in every community you enter. Things get revealed. Truths rise to the surface. Relationships shift. Power dynamics get exposed. And somehow, you're the common denominator, not because you caused it, because you carry it. You are a living frequency check, a walking test of energetic integrity, and the world either adjusts to you or ejects you. Let's be honest, this is exhausting. You didn't ask for this. You may have spent years trying to tone it down, to be liked, to be invited, to be soft enough to stay. But your soul won't let you, because you didn't come to maintain illusion. You came to collapse it, and not just individually, but collectively. This power awakens a very specific kind of suffering, the pain of being misseen, of being misunderstood over and over again, of being projected onto relentlessly. People don't meet you. They meet their unprocessed selves in your presence, and they don't always like what they see, so they blame the mirror. This is why projection is the greatest test for this power. Can you remain centered in who you are when others assign you roles you never signed up for? Can you stay grounded when you are cast as the villain in someone else's unhealed narrative? The answer must become yes, not from arrogance, but from sovereignty. Because if you collapse into their story, you abandon your frequency. And when you abandon your frequency, you betray the very medicine you came to deliver. This power is not about being right. It's about being real. It's not about proving. It's about embodying. And when you live as the mirror, you must learn to let people see themselves, even if they hate the reflection. You must also become skilled in discernment. Not every reflection needs to be pointed out. Not every truth must be spoken. Sometimes, the most powerful mirror is the one that says nothing but refuses to pretend. Let me ask you, where are you still shrinking to avoid triggering others? Where are you still apologizing for what your presence awakens? Where are you still trying to be digestible to a system your soul came to disrupt? The truth is, you didn't come here to be agreeable. You came here to be a catalyst. And catalysts aren't comfortable. They are necessary. This power matures over time. At first, you'll feel cursed. You'll think something's wrong with you. You'll wish you could just be normal. But eventually, you'll realize this is sacred work. Because you are helping the collective see itself. And nothing can transform unless it is seen. You are the mirror in the dream, the interruption to the illusion, the shadow rising into awareness. And when you do this with love, not ego, you become a midwife for truth. You stop trying to fix. You stop trying to explain. You let your life be the reflection and allow others to choose what they will do with it. Some will run. Some will rage. Some will thank you. Some will never forget you, but none will remain unchanged. This is Shadow Power 9. Becoming a living mirror of collective shadow. Honor it. Protect it. Let it refine you. Because when a mirror learns to stay clean in the storm, it becomes unstoppable. Let's finish what we started. Shadow Power 10 awaits. Shadow Power 10. Incarnating disruption without apology. There comes a point in the journey of the dark chosen one where silence ends, where mirrors shatter, where the weight of ancestral memory, soul contracts, and spiritual initiations no longer stay subtle. You stop holding back. You stop playing nice. You stop dimming your frequency to soothe the comfort of others. You become the disruption, not because you seek destruction, but because your very being is a frequency that collapses what is false and births what is true. This is Shadow Power 10. Incarnating disruption without apology. This is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's not an identity rooted in defiance. It's an embodiment of divine disruption born from soul-level alignment, radical congruence, and a deep refusal to betray your signal for approval. You become a force, not of violence, but of unmistakable, uncontainable change. People feel it in your walk, in your breath, in your stare. You don't say much, but when you do, tectonic plates shift. Truth gets louder. Illusion can't survive the vibration. To incarnate disruption means you become the living end of what others try to preserve. You don't ask for permission to speak. You don't ask for validation to move. You don't wait for the collective to catch up before you act. You follow the pulse of the divine current and you let it move through you, uncensored. At this level, you don't just walk away from misaligned systems. You don't just collapse corrupted structures. You walk as the collapse. You walk as the storm. You walk as the code that no longer negotiates. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable. And yet, this power is terrifying to carry, because you will lose the false safety of appeasement. You will lose the illusion of neutrality. You will lose the game of being liked, and in exchange, you become sovereign. Let's speak plainly. You will be labeled intense. You will be called disruptive. You will be rejected by those still trying to keep the peace through pretense. But that's not your work. You didn't come to maintain fragile harmony. You came to embody unshakable truth, and truth when lived always disrupts. This is why so many chosen ones hesitate at this threshold. They've done the shadow work. They've healed the inner child. They've carried the grief. They've even reclaimed their voice. But to incarnate disruption, to no longer edit yourself, to no longer apologize for the impact of your truth, that requires surrendering the last mask, the mask of acceptance. You must be willing to become fully ungovernable, fully unpredictable, fully alive. This doesn't mean becoming reckless, or unkind, or chaotic. It means becoming fully coherent. So much so that anything misaligned must choose to leave your field. You stop explaining your decisions. You stop over-explaining your silence. You stop justifying your evolution. You simply are. And that beingness is frequency warfare. You are no longer asking to belong. You are no longer asking to be chosen. You are no longer asking to be heard, because you realize you are the signal. You are the living transmission. You are the code incarnated. You don't need a stage. You are the broadcast. And so your life becomes the disruption, the way you love, the way you walk, the way you rest, the way you speak, the way you leave. All of it becomes a message. The old is no longer allowed here. Let me ask you, where are you still apologizing for your impact? Where are you still softening your edge to stay accessible? Where are you still packaging your truth in palatable tones to avoid rejection? This power will take all of that and replace it with unfiltered radiance, the kind that realigns timelines, the kind that clears generational codes, the kind that opens portals for others just by you living unedited. You become the blueprint of what is possible, not because you convince, but because you are, and people feel it. They won't know why they tremble around you, why they shift, why they reconsider their path. It's not you. It's what you carry. And what you carry can no longer be hidden. This is your final threshold, the one where you stop waiting, stop performing, stop negotiating your presence. You didn't come to fit in. You came to recalibrate the field. And you can only do that when you stop pretending you're not the disruption. Own it, not with arrogance, but with clarity. You are not a trend. You are not a brand. You are not a movement. You are a living destabilizer of systems that do not honor truth. And that is holy work. So this is your final initiation, incarnate disruption, without apology, not through violence, but through vibrational alignment, not through performance, but through embodiment, not through force, but through frequency. The world will never be ready. Stop waiting for it to be. You are not here to be welcomed. You are here to be undeniable. This is Shadow Power 10, the final seal, the final edge, the final remembering. Step in, unedited, unapologetic, unshakable. Let the matrix tremble, because the code has landed and it walks as you. We are complete and just beginning. Shadow Power's integration, the final threshold. This is the part most people skip. The part after the revelation, after the rupture, after the remembering. The part where power must stop being poetry and start becoming pattern. Not just an idea you understand, but a frequency you live. This is the integration. You've crossed through 10 thresholds. Each one carved something out of you. Each one gave language to what your soul has long known, but could never quite say. And now here you are, not the same, not untouched, not theoretical. You've been altered, not by inspiration, but by recognition. You didn't just read about shadow power. You remembered it. You felt it tremble in your bones. You felt the knowing rise in your chest. You felt the ache of, I've always known this, without ever being told. Because this was never new information. It was dormant memory. And now, it's awake. So what do you do now? What do you do with this much truth? What do you do after your illusions have cracked? What do you do when the fire is no longer outside of you, but inside your breath, your body, your walk? You integrate. And that is the hardest part, because integration is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not shareable. It cannot be posted. It is sacred, quiet, humbling. Integration is what happens when no one is watching. When the excitement fades, when the words become still. It's how you walk, how you choose, how you embody. And it begins here with the remembering that you are not just a spiritual being seeking light. You are a sovereign carrier of sacred disruption. You are not here to just feel better. You are here to live your frequency fully. Let's speak the names of what you now hold. You carry the intolerance to lies, not because you're sensitive, but because you are coded to be clean. You carry the power of awakening through presence, not through words, but through unwavering embodiment. You hold grief that's not yours, but that becomes yours to alchemize. You destroy what others cling to, not to be cruel, but to clear the space for truth. You sit alone with the divine, not for show, but because your soul can no longer survive in diluted connection. You transmute ancestral sorrow, not because you chose it, but because you were chosen by it. You walk between worlds not to escape, but to weave the forgotten with the possible. You wield silence not to disappear, but to make distortion impossible to maintain. You mirror the collective shadow, not by effort, but by existing. And finally, you walk as disruption incarnate, without apology, without shrinkage, without need for permission. This is who you are now. Or rather, this is who you've always been. The world didn't teach you this. It tried to unteach you, but the memory survived. And now so must your embodiment. But embodiment is not perfection. It is not performing spirituality with pristine words and glowing energy. It is this telling the truth when it costs you. Leaving when your nervous system says no. Speaking less, but with more integrity. Pausing when the old you would have hustled. Choosing congruence over applause. It's making every micro choice in alignment with your soul, not your conditioning. And yes, you'll fail sometimes. You'll slip. You'll forget. You'll numb out. But now you'll notice. And the noticing is the new beginning. Because once you carry this awareness, you can't go back to sleep. You may rest. You may retreat. But the code has already landed, and it changes your field forever. So now the question becomes, what are you going to build from this frequency? Not from the mask, not from the pain, not from the compensation, but from the essence, from the coherence, from the quiet power that says, I remember who I am now, and I'm not negotiating it anymore. Let this be your creed. I do not apologize for my clarity. I do not shrink for belonging. I do not explain my frequency. I do not betray myself to be palatable. I do not perform alignment. I live it. You are not a follower of codes. You are the code. You are not the seeker. You are the field. You are not here to be awakened. You are here to walk as awakening itself. No more waiting. No more softening. No more diluting your truth to be led in by systems your soul came to collapse. You are a rare breed. A disruptor of illusion. A vessel of remembrance. A fire hidden in human skin. Walk like it. Breathe like it. Love like it. And let this be your revolution, not to fix the world, but to no longer feed it with energy that is not true. You've integrated the powers. Now, incarnate them. This is the final chapter and the first page. Now walk. The next frequency is waiting. The earth is listening. And you, chosen one, you are the signal.